Okay.
Place number one, place number two. Okay. It says it's starting. It says we're going live. Now it says we are live. Hello,
Hi.
welcome Dulcimoon community. I'm Erin Mae, and I am here today with Debbie Porter, and I'm so excited to get to talk to you.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Ugh, ugh, I love you. I adore you. And now the whole community is going to get to love and adore you too. So I always like to just kind of start with like, how did the dulcimer come into your life? What is your dulcimer beginning? What's the beginning of the dulcimer story?
Well, mine kind of has an emotional aspect to it, and it's been a an outlet for my finding peace in my life too. But I was a singer-songwriter in the 70s in the Austin scene around Dallas and all, and I met the love of my life in 1974, and I played guitar and I wrote a bunch of love songs for him. And in 78, he was in a really bad car accident and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. So for the next 6 years, I did not play one note of music.
Mm.
And I shouldn't be telling all this live, but I will in case it helps anybody else out there. So I went to a shrink. All of you shrinks out there, please don't take offense because I use it as a term of endearment. But I went to this counselor and he started trying to tell me different ways to relax and to bring my tension level down. And I said, just stop. And I thought about playing an old jazz song on my guitar. And I went home and I thought I've paid this guy $80 when I've got $1,000 guitar under the bed that ought to be playing. So I pulled this guitar out, and when I started playing it, I just immediately started weeping. I couldn't play the guitar anymore. It was so tied up with the loss and the trauma that we had gone through. And I thought, I can't play. And the angel smiled. Shortly after that, by weird coincidence, I met a guy, a little slight dude from Texas named David Schnaufer. And it was up at Mountain View, Arkansas at the Folk Center. And he started playing this little dulcimer that you just needed one finger to go up and down on the melody string and make this beautiful music. And I did not have any former emotional ties to this instrument. And I was a singer and I loved music and I just fell into it. I mean, it was just stunning. And I fell into a beautiful friendship with this person, with David Schnaufer. He used to come stay with Richard and I and spend Christmases with us. And, he was just a very giving person. I saw how he taught. I had a PhD in special ed. I was a teacher. I accepted people wherever they were on whatever level they were on. And that was David's philosophy. And he didn't need a PhD to do it. It just, it just came to him to be present
Yeah.
with someone with this beautiful little instrument at whatever level they were playing at. You always knew that he was listening to you. And so I just thought, what a gift this instrument has been. So I started playing. He started inviting me on stage, and then other people started inviting me to festivals, and it just was wonderful. And then, if I can go on into my David story, Erin,
Yeah, sure.
um,
I
about
love David stories.
oh, we played. In fact, he wouldn't sing. Somebody weird one time told him he couldn't sing, he just needed to play, and so he stopped singing. So he gave me some of his originals to record, and I made him go in and sing with me. So his first singing was on 16th Avenue in a really fabulous Nashville studio, and he went outside in the alley for a minute, and we were playing around. He walked in and he heard his voice through the playback, and he walked in and he said, "Is Don Williams?" I didn't know Don Williams was in the building, and so he dug his voice. He really liked the sound of his voice. Let's see, what was that song? I can't remember anything better than holding you close on a cold winter night, seeing you breathing, da 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 da, and it's all right. You know it's And that's such a nice thing to tell somebody. It's all right. It's all right. I mean,
Yeah.
things happen in your life, good and bad, and things you question, and just to have somebody say it's all right. So I always love that song. He sang that with me. We put it on my uh, "A Dulcimer for You, Darling" CD. I tried to
Oh.
record every song I could find that had the word "darling" in it.
Oh, how fun is that?
So I did all these Darlin songs, but Dave was on that record, and then he was on every record since. So when he passed away, it was terrible. He died of cancer, and it was just his last recording was a song written by a friend of mine, Kevin Welch, called "Till I'm Too Old to Die Young." And David recorded that in the studio with Linda Ronstadt. It was her last time to sing. It was
Oh,
David's last time to play. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he then lost his life to cancer. And so as I was flying on an airplane out to Nashville, we were going to be going through his things and visiting with friends and all. I was like above the clouds in a plane, and it was like the old Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland movies. Let's put on a show. I thought, let's make a CD. So when I landed the plane, I started calling friends. I said, let's make a CD and let's use all the money to buy instruments for kids. And that's what we did. And I called it Dulcimers for David because he believed that the tradition of the dulcimer needed to continue for
yeah.
little girls, little boys, old people, everybody. And so that first record, I got unreleased cuts of David. We recorded some there. And then a few years later, we made the second one. And now dulcimers come in from everywhere, and donations and estate. People who have an estate say, we don't know what to do with these dulcimers. Vanderbilt gave me all the dulcimers from David's office, where he was a professor emeritus there at the Blair School of Music. And I actually got 12 dulcimers to to the Syrian refugee camps in Albania. 12 dulcimers.
I had
And
forgotten about that.
yeah, there was a Red Cross volunteer who was in Macedonia. Anyway, there was a Red Cross volunteer that taught music in those refugee camps, and she
Yeah.
would convince mothers to let their little kids come sit with her and play
Mhm.
music. And she had
Yeah.
heard about the dulcimer, and so she contacted this friend of mine and said, "Do you know anybody that knows anything about the American dulcimer?" And he had her reach out to me. So I got 12 dulcimers to her, and she took those. I mean, the beauty of something positive about America happening in Syrian refugee camps just has all kinds of uh,
Yes.
dynamics for
Many
me.
layers.
Yeah, but what is so funny is the Albanian public broadcast system, like our PBS,
Yeah.
they did a special on these little kids playing the American dulcimer. And they all spoke, it sounded like Russian to me. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, very kind of, well, it's Russian or whatever. It's blah, blah, blah. And then the little kids would go, fare thee well, old Joe Clark, fare thee well, I say. And then they'd go back to talking in their natural language. And they sent me the link to that. And it was just great. These little bitty kids playing the dulcimer. I had
Oh,
sent them my recordings in a book. So they had old Joe Clark and Wildwood Flower and Ballum Cabbage
yeah.
and and it was just the joy of these children. I mean, it was so cool. So anyway, I used to have to try to pick and choose what kids they'd send me letters, and I didn't have enough dulcimers. And
Yeah.
if someone I could tell, like, I just lost my grandmother and she played music with me, or I'm I'm uncomfortable in school and I don't have many friends. I mean, if somebody wrote me a note that I knew the dulcimer would be a healing journey for them, then
Yeah.
that's who I picked. It wasn't just I want a dulcimer. My parents don't want to spend the money. It was when I had to decide. Now I'm able to send 5 or 6 dulcimers to a librarian in Florida, or to somebody starting the dulcimer course in Kansas. Remember the lady in
Yep.
Kansas?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
what we want is very playable, good instruments. We don't want some wall hanging that's not going to make somebody feel like they're making something beautiful. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the gold standard for me. And some dulcimers I buy. McSpadden does a great deal for me. Terry McCafferty makes me a dulcimer, a great
Mhm.
box dulcimer from his old pattern about every other year, and I'm able to give someone a Terry McCafferty dulcimer. He's been very generous, and um, so that's. I write music on the dulcimer now. I teach, and I just love sharing the gift that David gave me. Um,
Mhm.
so that's
Yeah.
that's kind of my journey with this.
Ugh. All of it just makes me so happy, and it brings up a lot of really beautiful memories for me too, because I was one of the kids that David Schnaufer spent some extra time with, and I
Oh,
didn't I didn't get to meet him very many times. Kansas to Nashville to Texas, we just didn't end up seeing each other a lot of times. But I credit David Schnaufer with being the reason that I stuck with the dulcimer, because I got a dulcimer. I got a dulcimer as a little kid because my dad found one cheap and was like, "Here you go. Try playing the dulcimer." And we like found a couple of books and got me this dulcimer, and that was the thing, right? And then maybe 2 or 3 years into having a dulcimer, um, David Schnaufer was at Winfield for the Walnut Valley Festival, and we went to I went to all of his shows.
yeah,
At Winfield you perform 2 or 3 or 4 times a day sometimes, and like
yeah,
little me is sitting in the audience of every single show being like, it's a dulcimer player. It's the only one I've ever seen.
yeah. And it
And
felt like he was playing just to you, didn't it? Like he
well,
was focused on you.
and we happened to be walking by the McSpadden Dulcimer booth under the grandstands at the festival, which has been
Right,
there for forever. And David Schnaufer is standing there, which, now as a person who's plugged into the dulcimer community, that's a place where dulcimer players go to hang out with each other
right,
for
right.
sure, right? But it just seemed like this amazing random happenstance that David was standing there. And my dad's like, go talk to him. And I'm like 9 years old. I was not brave enough to do it. So my dad's like, hey, David, I just want to introduce you to my daughter. She's started to learn to play the dulcimer. And my dad says, and also, she's playing in the morning at the Acoustic Kids Showcase, which was at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's always early. It's like the first thing on the schedule is this kids showcase. And almost no one comes to it because it's really early in the morning at a festival where people stay up all night playing music. And I get on that stage that morning, and David Schnaufer is in the front row to watch me play my show. And then he comes around backstage and talks to us, and he gave me his Swing 9 Yards of Calico book and the cassette tape that went with it.
Yes.
And I played Wildwood Flower, which is the first song in that book, every day for the next year. But it was that spark, that connection, that him showing up and being so incredibly supportive. And you said something as we were chatting ahead of time about how like David always took that time to see and notice people. And he did that. He took that time to see and notice and show up and encourage me. And I think that I would have become disinterested in the dulcimer eventually because I didn't know anyone else who played. I hadn't met any other kids who had played. I didn't have any other connection with anyone about the dulcimer, and so I'm sure it would have been a thing that got set aside. But that connection moment was so powerful in my life. So
Oh gosh. I it's he left a special gift. He left us too soon, but I mean, we've kept his life alive. We've kept his music alive. I mean, uh, he took the dulcimer into another realm. The dulcimer was kind of an obscure instrument some people didn't know what it was. Most people didn't know what it was. And
Right.
he ended up being on the Judd's records. He went to Nashville and he just knocked on doors where he knew there was going to be a recording session and said, listen, this little instrument has a role here. He played with Bill Monroe. He played Johnny Cash and June Carter had, I don't remember what anniversary or what birthday it was, but it was some big deal, like they're, you know, and they wanted Bill Monroe there and David Schnaufer. And so they're
Wow.
great photo. And then Emmylou Harris got asked to there's a great PBS special on Hank Williams, and they wanted Emmylou Harris to sing on it. And they said,
Uh-huh.
okay, we'll do your shot at the Ryman, which was closed at that time. Uh, just a dusty stage not being used. And they said, what kind of band do you want to put together? And she said, I don't. I just want one guy, David Schnaufer. And so Emmylou Harris and David Schnaufer, did a beautiful Hank Williams song,
Yeah.
"May You Never Be Alone Like Me," and it's the best cut. All the other Hank Williams tributes on that particular PBS special are more elaborate, and just
Uh-huh.
this dusty stage and David with his little cowboy hat sitting on a stool and Emmylou singing, her voice piercing through, is stunning. And so, and David opened for Cher, believe it or not.
I
He
didn't know that.
Cher. And the next day in the Nashville paper, when they did the review on how great David was. Can you imagine? Cher was swinging from poles and had all this kind of elaborate stuff. And Cyndi Lauper was her official opening act. And of course, he helped Cyndi Lauper with the Dulcimer, and she wrote
Yeah.
Time After Time on the Dulcimer. She performed
Yeah.
Dulcimer on David Letterman, and Dave Schnaufer was a big inspiration to her. So
Yeah.
she said, I want David open it. So she had David step out on this huge, Bridgestone Arena or whatever the big arena was for a Cher concert. You can
That's
imagine the crowd that was there. And here
oh my
comes this little
goodness.
guy in his Amish hat. And so he really did so much for us with the Dulcimer. And you, me, Tull Glazner, Steve Seifert, other people keep his music alive. And what
Mm.
more could you ask of life? I think the main thing though that I want to convey to anybody is it isn't about I don't read music. It isn't really about musical ability like you think about violin perfection and banjo mastery and piano. This is this is just this beautiful little gentle sound that you can make yourself. You can take it and heal your cellular biology. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like heal as far as I'm concerned. I lay hands on this to heal, you know, and it still does that for me. It still
Yeah.
does it for me.
Yeah. The simple sounds and the being able to make simple sounds without overthinking it.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful. It's really, really powerful.
And you can take it to as complex a level as you want. I mean, I play jazz on it. I don't just stick with old time because that wasn't my background, other than the
Yeah.
songs my grandmother sang in the cotton fields, picking cotton here in Texas, and taught me as a little girl, be nobody's darling but mine, and waiting on a train, and those Carter family and Jimmy Rogers songs. Those fall beautifully on the dulcimer, and so does "Do You Know What It Means to Miss New Orleans?" I mean, so you can take it any way you want to. You're not
Yeah.
limited with the dulcimer, even
Mhm.
if you don't add any fancy frets. You know?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
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 just
true. I love my fancy frets, and it's so beautiful to have an instrument where you just can't play anything that doesn't sound good.
that's right. As long as it's in tune, you need to get yourself in tune, and you need to get the instrument in tune,
Yep. Yep.
or get the instrument in tune, and it'll help you get yourself in tune
Yes,
on
very
a deep
true.
level. On a deep level.
Mhm. Yeah. It's interesting. So you were mentioned that you don't read music, and so you're playing by ear and intuition a lot. And I struggle a lot actually to play by ear. That's been much more difficult for me. But the great thing about the dulcimer is like, okay, So you can read tablature pretty easily, right? Like there are all these ways of accessing it, and it can be all of it. I don't know.
Right,
I
right.
think it's a magic instrument.
And the thing that I'd like to convey too, because I have people that come to festivals and say, "Oh, I can't sing," or they told me just to move my mouth in choir, and that in, just infuriates me because I just think we've all got a voice, and um, it may be that you don't want to sing. That's fine. I'm not pressuring, but I'm just saying, don't come to this and then go, "Oh, I'm just not good enough." It worries me when people do that. Or
Yeah.
if someone's given them a terrible instrument and they think they're a bad musician because somebody made an instrument in their garage and didn't put the frets right, and so they don't sound good, and they think it's
Yeah.
them. It's if you have a decent instrument with decent strings, you get it in tune, either with electronic tuner or whatever, you can sound good. And whatever level you play at is something to celebrate. Celebrate wherever you are. You don't have
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, I got to set a timer. I got to practice an hour." If you're geared that way, do it. I wish I was geared that way, but
Right.
I kind of go as the spirit moves me, or pressure because I know I got to play a festival, or I know I got to be somewhere and sound really great. Then I do follow all those good principles about practicing and making sure I know my music. Don't get up in front of people and play something that you're insecure about. Have two or three songs that you know you could do in your sleep, and don't think always, "Oh, I've got to have a new song for these people to hear." Play the song you know great. So you feel like I have knocked them dead. And then add
That's
new
right.
songs. But
That's
don't
right.
don't put yourself in a tense situation, because performing adds another. I don't know, Erin, if this is what you want me to talk
You're
about, but
doing it's perfect. I love all of it. You're
not
addressing like all the things that humans struggle with, right?
yeah. So I mean, if it is bile them cabbage and you can blow it out, play bile them cabbage because
And
you'll
the
sound good.
reality is, unless you're playing for dulcimer players, no one knows that song. So you're teaching them a new
Yeah, that's
song.
right. That's right. And you can change up the lyrics if you're playing for kids. If there's a lot of folks out there that teach and want to play for kids, change the lyrics. I have kids sometimes write a song that they'll write. I say, just give me three or four words, and we'll use the bile them cabbage or Mary had a little lamb and put new words. I use
Yeah.
people's names. I'll go, Bonnie had a little horse. You know, I like to put kids in the frame. I put them in the frame with the
Yep.
music. Uh,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. There's a fellow down in Tyler. I'm going to go ahead and talk about him real quick. Johnny Ray, that did a music program for fourth graders at Tyler School. And every year we went down and we had people bring their fourth grade class from as far as Houston. And we would teach Sue Carpenter, me, Margaret Wright. We would teach these kids. And my UPS man pulled up at my house the other day and he said, "You've got this box. I think it's Dulcimers." And I said, "UPS man, how would you know what a dulcimer is?" "Oh, well, my teacher in Tyler taught us how to play the dulcimer when I was in the fourth grade." And I said, "I was your teacher. I came down there and did the yearly dulcimer festival for kids that Johnny Ray
That's
did. That's
amazing.
my UPS guy." And so, I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to have that come back to me. It just gives me chills now to tell the story. So there's so
Yeah.
much beauty in this. There's so much beauty in uh, giving this gift like David gave to me. I don't know what my life would have been had I not found the dulcimer.
Yeah.
I would have kept on keeping on, but it has brought so much joy and so many beautiful people like you and DJ and others into my life. I can't I can't be a better advertisement.
Well, I think one of the pieces of these stories too is you can't possibly know where the spark is going to come from, right? Like you go and teach a classroom full of fourth graders. I'm doing a residency coming up with second graders. And I mean, it's very easy to walk into a group of kids and do a kind of a short term thing like that. And really honestly think no one in this room was paying attention. Like, these kids were squirrely and they didn't seem to be sort of internalizing any, like, that often is the experience in a sort of group setting with a bunch of
Right.
kids.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then you got a UPS man who's recounting a story of that one day in their fourth grade class when the special teacher came in,
30
and there's
years ago.
the
30, 30
spark of that.
years
You
ago.
just, which is like, that's one of the things that I carry close to me is, as an adult, understanding what happened when I was 9 years old and David Schnaufer sat in the front row of my concert was not like some super extraordinary thing for him. And it was an incredibly powerful thing for me. And it's just like those small moments, those things that seem maybe kind of insignificant to us, might be the absolutely revolutionary thing
Right.
in a kid's life, or in a young adult's life, or
Yeah.
a
Any
person,
kids.
a human who's struggling to figure
Right.
out what to do next. Sometimes it's just that like small moment of connection with them that changes everything.
Right.
That's powerful.
It's
Music can give us those opportunities. Oh,
and this is a gateway drug to music.
oh yeah, right. You put
And
this in
for
your lap,
everybody.
you
I
make
mentioned
sounds.
that I was into special ed. I mean, I've seen kiddos with autism that this is just perfect for. It doesn't really matter any of how smart you are, what challenges you have. You can find a way to bring joy into your life with this instrument.
Yeah. Uh, all right. So, Debbie, tell everybody how they can learn more about you and the Dulcimers for David projects.
Okay.
Where do we find you?
Okay. Debbie, Debbie, Debbie Porter Music at gmail.com. Debbie Porter, Porter, music at gmail.com. I have a website, debbieportermusic.com. And so send me that, an email. I'll even announce, well, I better not. Well, I don't know. Should I announce my phone number online? I don't care.
Folks can
Get a
email
call
you.
from some Russian guy that says, my kid played dulcimer in your refugee camp. 903-946-2983. But just contact me if you want to donate a dulcimer. If you want, we have a beautiful concert on DVD of David, and all the proceeds from my CDs from that DVD. If you want to hear and experience what Erin and I did, right close up with David playing and David's stories, that DVD is beautiful,
You made
and
me cry. I
and
love it.
I can. It's just worth having, just to have playing in the background even, but you can really watch David and get a feel for what this meant to him in his life. It's
Hmm.
so that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I love it so much. Thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with us this
Sure.
morning. And we are gonna keep roping you into Dulcimoon projects. So
You.
I'm so glad you're a part of our big wide Dulcimer community, and I'm just sending you a big ol' hug.
Oh, listen, I feel it. I wish you'd come down here. We could go out on the boat again and do a pontoon.
When it's not snowing, I'm gonna take you up on that.
It's 80 degrees here. Now's when you need to be here.
That's true. Okay, I'm coming soon. I got a festival this weekend, Debbie, and I'm taking dulcimers to do an instrument petting zoo. So I'm doing that this weekend. After that, I'll come and see you.
Okay, okay, sounds good. But I'll see you online. This is a
For sure.
beautiful thing too.
Yeah,
Cyber
definitely.
hugs to you.
Mwah.